Hello, scholars. Welcome back. It's already week 4 of CJS350 Emergency Management. I hope we had a good week 3, and let's dive into what we have in store for us for here in week 4. As you can see, we have 3 deliverables, a reading assignment, and our critical assignment prep. So let's break down each one of those. Take a second. You can read through your module objectives. As always, our module objectives is what we hope that we have figured out or that we have met by the end of this week. For our reading this week, we are going to dive into Chapter 6 of Introduction to Emergency Management. In Chapter 6, we're going to introduce one of the new disciplines, and that discipline is response. As many of you, even without a whole lot of knowledge about emergency management, the response portion is the most familiar. We know we've all heard of, we've watched on television, we've witnessed firsthand government agencies, organizations responding to emergencies after they have occurred. So this is the response phase that we're going to be talking about this week, and you should be familiar with this because we witness this a lot of times firsthand. The mitigation side, the response side, the recovery side, those are the phases that we often don't realize because it's not in the mainstream media. The incident has already occurred. It's already de-escalated. We've moved on. So but for this week, we'll be talking about that portion or that discipline that many of us will be very familiar with. For our lecture this week, I included the PowerPoint. And as I've explained in the past, if I were in your seat, I would view the PowerPoint, I would do the reading, and then I'd view the PowerPoint again. And anything that comes up in redundancy is probably something worthwhile that you retained because it'll probably be a key element that we will need to understand and we'll probably revisit again later. So let's dive into our first discussion board. So our week 4 discussion board, find and describe one example where a disaster has effectively managed and one where the disaster was not effectively managed. Using a single hazard type, whether it's earthquake or terrorist attacks, and you can use this form to post this. So what I want is the name and date and location of the event, and then whether the emergency management effort was considered effective or ineffective, and what worked well or what the problem was. So with many of these, you could probably find many options, many examples. If you can, try to find one in the same category. And unfortunately, in emergency management, not everything necessarily runs as planned. So many circumstances, so many variables that come into account, and why something was successful and why something wasn't successful, and then kind of maybe a little bit of logic of why you think it worked well and what the problem was if it didn't work well. Some of these are incredibly obvious, like our response to Hurricane Katrina is one that always comes to mind, but sometimes we can see lesser examples or less popular examples, even here in the state of California with our response to some of our wildland incidents and our wildfires, where some fires are incredibly well managed and others seem to have some issues. And whether those are internal or external, if they're political, whatever those issues might be, you can explain to me or to your colleagues why this went well or why it didn't. So as always, we have some standards that are associated with it. One of the standards is that your first discussion board, your original post, needs to be at least 300 words. And the logic behind that is with 300 words, you have a scholarly post that your colleagues can read through. And then you need to reply to at least 2 of your colleagues' posts, and the word count on those is between 100 and 150 words. And why I put that word count is because I am asking you to do a scholarly reply to add to the academic conversation of your colleagues, not to agree with them, but to actually add to the dialogue for this assignment. So I look forward to I'm looking forward to reading of your original post and all your follow-ups. The next assignment that we have is going to be our second larger written assignment that we've dived into so far in this course. So for this course, it's going to be the private and public collaboration. There is a strong movement of organizations and individuals who advocate for greater involvement of the private and nonprofit sectors in emergency management. At present, agencies at all government levels contract with non-governmental organizations for such things as debris removal, inspections, the provision of equipment, and other help. However, this dependency is kept at bay as much as possible, with the federal government attempting to make as much of the task within its ranks as possible. The state and local governments doing even less to plan for the emergency involvement of these players. However, in the case of Katrina, many felt that FEMA was unable to handle many of the response requirements of this event. As an example, the logistics involved in moving what was needed to those who needed it. Several companies, including Walmart and FedEx, were able to do what FEMA cannot do. Read the following 2 articles and give your opinion on whether or not you think that the federal government should or should not or rely upon the private and nonprofit sectors to manage its disaster logistical needs. Feel free to supplement any answers with information from other articles or reports. And got a couple, there, what FEMA could learn from Walmart and how Walmart beat the feds to New Orleans. So a couple articles, a little bit dated, but I think worthy, because what I really want you to understand is, with these somewhat dated articles and knowing the speed and the rate at which technology and distribution has evolved since these, do you believe that the private contractors, that these nonprofits, and how we can incorporate them into our response mechanism when it comes to contracting for or outsourcing these disciplines, which is going to just augment with our most recent COVID response, in which we found out firsthand, especially due to the magnitude of size, that the dependency upon some of our partners in order to be successful. This concept of collaborative governance, where it's going to take multiple agencies in order to succeed, in order to meet our objectives, was incredibly apparent during our COVID-19 response, especially in the fact that it was so widespread. Normally in emergency management, we're used to isolated incidents, and even with something like Hurricane Katrina, isolated is still relevant. Isolated meaning that it was affecting just a certain amount of states, a certain amount of ground. But when you have a response like it was with COVID, where we had emergencies in every city, in every county, in every state throughout the nation, you understand quickly that our ability to perform our tasks were very limited. So I'm looking forward to hearing your response to this. Remember, there is a grading criteria for this. I need you to have a minimum of 3 pages of content. I think it will take 3 pages in order to meet the standards of what I'm asking you. So 3 pages, and that does not include a title page and a reference page, and that's 50 points of that. And then 20 more points is at your writing skills at a college level with correct grammar and spelling. So our next topic our next deliverable is going to be our Chapter 6 quiz. Once again, the quiz will measure your attention for this week's material. There is no time limit on the quiz, but once it is opened, it must be completed. Do not try to save your work and come back later. This quiz may be repeated 1 time for a higher score if you wish. So straightforward, like we have in the past, our quizzes are just there to see that we are retaining the information that is being presented. Read, take the quiz, and if you need to, if you've missed any, let's retake that again so we understand what the correct answers are. We can retain the correct answers, and we will have that information logged as we move forward. And then finally, read through your critical assignment preparation each week. If you start putting a little bit of work into your critical assignment prep, we'll be that much more successful the workload will be that much less as we move forward. So there you have it, scholars. This is week 4 of CJS350. If I assume that everything's going well, if I'm not hearing from you, if you have any questions, comments, concerns at all, reach out and we'll get all those solved. Have a blessed week. I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye for now.